What's up everybody, I'm Adam, you're watching Model Aviator, and today we have a new release announcement and review of the latest airplane from E-Flite. This is the UMX Me262. This is the first time we've seen one of these this size. It's a twin 30mm EDF. It comes fully assembled exactly the way you see it, in one of the convenient UMX carrying cases that we're all used to. A lot of people hang on to those for storage and transport. The UMX Me262 has a 26-inch wingspan. It's 21.25 inches long. Our example weighs 9.84 ounces, ready to fly with the gear on and the heaviest recommended pack, and it weighs 8.54 ounces with the gear off and the lightest recommended pack. It has two 8,800 kV brushless outrunner motors, linear servos throughout, and the recommended flight packs are the Spectrum 3S 600 mAh and 850 mAh packs. Obviously, the 262 is an ultra micro or micro size ranged airplane, so flying it out of a park or a schoolyard is absolutely possible, but it is fast. You have to account for the speed. You're going to need more room for this than a UMX Waco, for instance. It is sold as a bind and fly only. That is Spectrum DSMX and DSM2 protocol. The reason being, the ESC and receiver functions are in a single board in the airplane. It is a 5-channel airplane out of the box. You have elevator, rudder with a steerable nose wheel, ailerons, variable throttle, and you can use that 5th channel or function to switch between AS3X and optional safe select, which the jet is equipped with. If you have the right Spectrum transmitter that supports smart telemetry, you'll get some of that. You'll have flight log information, minimum and maximum voltage, minimum and maximum ESC status, on the fly ESC status, and on the fly voltage. When I first unboxed this one, the size impressed me. This is a large model for the ultra micro / micro size range, and it's really well done. You have adjustable ball links on all the control surfaces. You have a convenient top hatch that is fairly large and exposes all the electronics, so you have easy access. The battery bay is relatively large. There's plenty of room there for the largest pack recommended, and room to move even that one around so that you can tailor the balance to your preferences. The size and layout of the airplane enabled them to incorporate some scale features that you can't always incorporate in every ultra micro or micro. The pilot figure and clear canopy is a big plus. A lot of people love that. I love that. You got scale gun ports in a plastic piece on the hatch. The nose cone is plastic, and there are other plastic pieces strategically placed throughout the airplane for both detail and reinforcement. It has an elaborate scale paint scheme, really attractive model. That is well done. And the surface in and of itself is a scale feature. I learned something new about the 262. I didn't know this, but the development team, they've been committed to doing things like this. This is the recent F-86. You see all the panel lines on this airplane. Nice scale-looking jet, right? Well, when they were researching the 262, what they found out is that back in World War II, at the factory, they actually filled all the gaps before they painted these airplanes in an attempt to try to eke out a bit more speed and performance, make them a bit more aerodynamic. So they were actually completely smooth. So the omission of panel lines on this one is intentional, and that's actually scale. Another nice scale feature of the 262 is the gear itself. You've got scale gear doors and the oversized scale tires. 262s operated off very rough fields in World War II, so they had oversized tires like you see here, and this gear is easily and quickly removable with no tools for easy hand launching. In fact, let's just show you how easy that is. You separate the nose gear door, wiggle it, pull it off, nose gear pulls right out. You separate the main gear door, wiggle that, that comes off. There's a tab right here. You press that tab with your thumb as you push, and out comes the gear. And just that fast, you got the jet cleaned up and ready for hand launching. Now I know inquiring minds are going to want to know, how much does the gear and the gear doors weigh? And yes, we weighed them. 20 grams or 0.7 ounces is what that weighs. Interesting, if you incorporate Safe Select, that has a launch mode that it recognizes. All you have to do is, in this configuration, put lateral G on the airplane to hand launch it. It recognizes that, feeds in up elevator, and gets the airplane away safely, pun intended. Then you can flip it right back into AS3X and rock and roll. You have nice thin plastic skid pads on both nacelles, so when you belly land this thing on the grass, it sits down and skids to a stop, nice and smooth as you please. We're going to talk about the recommended batteries for a moment. Every time we review an airplane that has an IC2 connector, there are misconceptions and misunderstandings, so we're going to try to clear some of that up for you. First and foremost, you don't have to have a smart battery pack to fly the Me262. Yes, this 850 milliamp pack from Spectrum is a smart pack and it works great, but the 600 is not a smart pack and it works great. You can use any battery pack that's 3-cell in the 600 to 850 milliamp range, or a milliamp range close to that at the same weight as these batteries for balance purposes, and you're going to be fine. The only X factor is the connector. A lot of people have batteries that have the old red JST connectors in this size and voltage range, and that's fine for a lot of airplanes. In this particular one, Horizon doesn't recommend using this adapter, which you can buy to use those batteries if you're bent on it. But you need to understand why they don't recommend it. Those JST connectors are rated for 5 amps continuous current and a burst of maximum about 10 amps, and that's for not a very long time at all. This airplane, when we tested it, is pulling over 14 amps at full throttle, and that's on the bench. With EDFs, sometimes they unload, sometimes they load up a bit and the amps go up in the air, and you need a connector that can handle that. That is the reason for the IC2s. But if you can use IC2s, you can use EC2s. So you can buy these EC2s from Horizon Hobby and solder those onto the batteries you'd like to use in this that have the JST connectors, and then you'll have a connector that you know for sure is going to be able to handle the amperage that this airplane is going to throw at it. Worth noting, this is not the only airplane. There's several airplanes in the Horizon lineup now that are using these IC2 connectors, and there are many more coming. So if you buy a lot of Horizon airplanes in this size range and you like that size airplane, you might as well plan on preparing to be able to use batteries like that in them, because there's going to be several that you can use them in. So just something to think about. These are a great option for this airplane, but they're not your only option. For charging packs with an IC2 connector, you can get this charge adapter for use with a smart charger or a standard charger. The manual is written in the new format that is step-by-step instructions on programming your transmitter to the jet, and all the other pertinent setup information is there. You have CG, ball link placement on the control horns, some expo suggestions, and of course after you fly it, you can adjust any of that to your liking if need be. We didn't deviate much from the manual setup on this one, honestly. Usually we do. This one was pretty much on point for us. Couple little changes, but not much. Our full setup page is next, so you can take a look at that, pause it if you want to see our setup, and then we're going to get right into the flying. You'll see a gear on flight with the Spectrum 3S 850 and a gear off flight with some bonus footage with the Spectrum 3S 600 milliamps. So check out the flying, pause the setup page if you need to, and we'll see you back here and give you our final thoughts. Enjoy the flying. At a very low throttle setting for taxiing, the high-pitched sound of those fans and motors is a bit much, but once you get just a bit past that low throttle setting, they smooth out and it sounds much better. There's plenty of power and aerobatic performance with the gear on, but like most airplanes designed this way, when you take the gear off, there's a definite and noticeable performance increase. Inverted flight is very stable even with the gear on, and you've got plenty of elevator in reserve. Touch and goes are a blast with this one. As jets go, it's easy to land and get into a nice nose-high main gear first touchdown. And as you saw there, when you screw one up, it's reasonably forgiving. And here's a 1G stall. It's going to drop the right wing. And I held it in, but recovery is pretty easy, and we're going to repeat that a couple times. I'm going to pay closer attention and show you how easy it is to recover and keep that wing from dropping if you're paying attention. And here's some grass ops for you. Bear in mind this grass is very short and very well manicured, but if the grass is good enough, you can land and take off the 262 on it. And as you also might have noticed, if you're in a hurry, it doesn't take much runway. With the Safe Select launch mode, hand launches are easy and consistent. This thing is a rock solid flyer, very stable, very predictable, what I like to call a really good honest airframe, and the performance increase when you take the gear off is nothing short of spectacular. The power system is pretty efficient as well. I was able to get 4 to 4.5 minutes even with the smaller pack with the gear off. We threw that in because that was my best 4-point roll all day. The thin plastic skid plates on the bottom of the nacelles make belly landing really easy with this plane. That was fun. That is some of the most fun I've had flying a UMX EDF. And I'll give you some context. I'm going to bring the recently released UMX F86 back into the picture. This is a great flying airplane, and I'm absolutely comfortable with it, but it took some setup time to do that. I had to really monkey with the setup, with the balance, with the expo, with the throw, to get the airplane where I wanted it. When I took off the first time with the Me262, within 3 turns, my thought was, damn, this thing flies really good. Very impressed. It is a very solid, honest airframe, and with the book setup, it was fine. I made some little tweaks to get it exactly where I want it, but it did not take much. Just a really good flying airplane and very easy to set up. Now, the other thing I want to show you while I got the F86 on the bench is take a look at the difference in the size of these two airplanes. Now, the F86 is not a small UMX EDF, and it is kind of dwarfed by this Me262. I am amazed that there is a configuration you can put this airplane in that makes it remote ID exempt. And you absolutely can do that, but it does depend on configuration. If you take the gear off and you use the lighter of the 2 packs, the Spectrum 3S 600 or a battery pack that weighs what that does, you can still put that battery forward, keep the airplane in balance, and you're at 242 grams on our scale, which is remote ID exempt. When you put the gear on, that puts you just over. If you use a heavier battery, gear on or off, that puts you just over. Again, you're not far over, but you are. But given the size and the presence and the performance that this airplane has, and I think that the size of it has something to do with that. Anytime you make anything bigger, even slightly, it makes a difference in how easy it is to make that airplane fly really well, and this one flies really well. So I'm impressed that there's a configuration you can put this thing in and be remote ID exempt, and it happens to be the configuration that to me is the most fun anyway. Light, clean, and quick. So when it comes to skill level, Horizon Hobby says it's a skill level 2 airplane, and it's important that you understand they have 2 skill level 2s. This is the higher of the 2 skill levels, and we agree with that. What that means is that this is certainly not a trainer, and this would not be a good first EDF for everyone. If you are a person coming off a trainer and you're good with an Aero Scout or an apprentice, and for some reason you want to go right into EDFs, this is not your huckleberry. Even though it is a good size for a UMX EDF, it is still small, it is very fast. That's going to make it hard to keep up with for a new to EDF new pilot. If you're an experienced pilot, and you've flown fast airplanes, sensitive airplanes, and you want to get into EDFs, you've been living under a rock for some reason, you've never flown one, you're not going to have a problem with this at all. Good, solid, honest airframe, and you'll be able to keep up with it. So really, it just depends on the pilot. When it comes to price point, $199.99 might seem steep at first for a UMX airplane. This is an all-new mold. It is a large UMX, and it is the best performing overall UMX EDF that I've flown thus far. Very impressed with this airplane, and it really looks the part. So we think in today's market, with everything that you buy being expensive, from groceries to fuel to cars to golf clubs, that's a fair price in today's market for an airplane that looks and flies this good. So if you decide that you'd like to add one to your hangar, we'll put links in the description where you can do just that. When you do, that supports our channel, and when you do that, Heidi and I appreciate you supporting our efforts. Thank you so much. That's it for us. Take care of yourselves. Happy flying. We'll see you next week with something else cool on this bench with wings.